Welcome. On Tonight with Tim Modise, we look at the statements made before Parliament about the Gupta family's involvement in state capture. The most controversial so far is by the Minister of Home Affairs, Malusi Gigaba, on how the Guptas obtained their South African citizenship. They are currently fugitives from the law, and the Hawks are looking for them to answer charges of corruption. The family is implicated in corruption and looting at state-owned enterprises that is estimated at above 50 billion rands. Some top politicians and government officials are said to be complicit in this grand corruption. To discuss this matter further, I'm joined by Wayne Duvenage of OUTA. Wayne.
Hi, Tim.
Thank you, and welcome again.
Lovely.
Now, the Minister of Home Affairs, previously, not so long ago, Minister of Finance, Malusi Gigaba, tried to explain how the Guptas obtained their South African citizenship, and social media exploded, people saying that he was misleading the public and so forth. I have spoken to his spokesperson who says what the minister said was the truth and nothing more than the truth, and that people were confusing the story. That the specific individual, Atul Gupta, was a naturalized South African citizen, and there was nothing untoward in that regard, and that, you know, everybody was getting the story wrong, so to speak. What's your view?
Well, there's definite evidence that Mr. Gigaba had a close relationship with him. He deployed Gideon Christians to India, to New Delhi, where we saw a lot of favors that were being provided to Gupta contacts to get visas to come out to South Africa. So he was involved in that appointment. We saw Malusi Gigaba's signature on a letter that fast-tracked the citizenship and the naturalization process of the Guptas. Now, since when does a minister sign letters of an applicant to who's looking to be a resident or a citizen in South Africa? It doesn't go that way. So when the minister gets involved and fast tracks things, then you know that he is involved and he is doing favors for connected people. And that in itself and on its own is enough to say that Mr. Gigaba has been acting untoward and not in the best interest of this country. And we laid charges against him on that regard.
Well, the other matter that the spokesperson raised was that at that time, that whoever was granted citizenship was, that they could not foretell, they did not expect that one of the Guptas will be involved in commissions of crime or be involved in any corruption schemes.
That's not the point. The point is that everybody needs to be treated the same way. You make your applications. If they get declined, as these were initially, then they get declined for valid reasons. Nobody gets favored ahead of anybody else. So you can see that when the Guptas were declined to following the normal process, they went around the back door straight to Malusi Gigaba's office, who then ensured that their paperwork and their approvals were processed far quicker than anybody else. Now, nobody else gets treated with that lovely...
So what do you read into that? That it was anticipated that something was going to happen to state-owned enterprises?
No, I think what it was this relationship with the president at the time, and they wanted to get into the country because they had intentions, and we can see what's transpired. Although the minister didn't know that at the time, maybe he did, maybe he was told, look after these people, they are friends of the president's, whatever that is. We need to be sure that the president and his friends, or whoever is applying for this favoritism, is treated like everybody else. So we know that he didn't know. I mean, Minister Gigaba didn't know what they were going to do. They got in. Once they were in, then they started plying their trade. Their trade was to form the relationships to make sure that appointments happened within government so that tenders could be favorably directed towards their business interests. It's exactly what has happened, and they've enriched themselves and their friends.
Now, there's talk that the amount of money that may have been lost to South African taxpayers is more than 50 billion rands, but nobody knows for sure how much money could have been lost through the corruption which the Guptas specifically are involved in. Do you, as Organization Undoing Tax Abuse, have a sense of how much money we're talking about here?
Look, you know, that's a case of how long's a piece of string.
Yeah.
If you talk to economists and if you talk to people who try and put a number to this, It's difficult to say how much was attributed to just the Guptas or how much went through their channels to the various people. And it's like a tentacles out there. How much did Zuma get? It's difficult to say. If we talk about corruption and maladministration and lost money due to sheer stuff that shouldn't be happening in this country, we can go as high as 80 billion rand a year in the last number of years. How much of that is attributed to only corruption and or maladministration, and then to the Guptas, is difficult to say. It would be a stretch to say that the Guptas themselves have milked the country for 50 billion on their own. That would be quite a lot of money, but even if it's 20 billion, if it's half, that's a lot of money. They have become enriched through their contacts.
Well, there are a few things that have been happening around the investigations of the state capture, and the key thing. Let me stay with the Guptas for a moment. Is that they are, the law agencies are looking for them, and we are told they are fugitives from the law. Well, yes. Why do you think they were allowed to leave? Because apparently the warrants of arrest were issued or applied for in late November, early December, and they were not granted, and now they are out of the country.
Well, let's know and understand just one thing. State capture involves capturing the enforcement agencies, the NPA, as we know, the Hawks, and the previous president did that very well. They would have been tipped off that these warrants were coming. They would have known when the police were going to close the net, because what we did see is that the Hawks and the NPA, certain elements within, were starting to do their work. I think they could see what was coming, especially after the December elections. And as the momentum of those cases against the Guptas gained traction, they had planned their trip out of the country. So I think they knew what was coming. They anticipated it, and if anything, I think they were tipped off and they got out in time.
There are other things, developments elsewhere. At Dinel, for instance, the chairperson.
Daniel Mancha has now resigned. We've also laid charges against him for his transgressions. Another state-owned entity in which transactions that favoured the Guptas, VR Laser being one of them, were being put into the system, bypassing procurement processes, tender processes, and now we have, like we have a lot of these state-owned entities, it's bankrupt. It's battling to pay its way. It's run high. It's run up a lot of debt on the borrowings that it's taken, and so Daniel Mancha has a lot to explain for, and obviously with Pravin Gordhan going in and Lynn Brown being removed, we know that he's not going to tolerate this nonsense. So he's got a lot of questions to ask of Daniel Mancha. And if Daniel Mancha wants to resign, he can run, but he can't hide.
And your reaction to the investigations around the Estina Dairy project? I mean, we were told there were the search and seizure warrants that were implemented earlier this year, and one expected arrests to be effected, but they have not been so far. But what's your reaction to the way
that's unfolding? I think what's good is that the Assets Forfeiture Unit got sufficient evidence to go ahead and seize. Now, that's a long journey, but we must know that the Minister Mosebenzi Zwane, the Minister of Mineral at the time, and previously the MEC of Agriculture in the Free State, was very implicated in that case. We've also laid charges against him last year. If anybody has to answer to most of the questions, it is Mr. Zwane. We believe that if the full course of the law takes the route that it should, he's going to be in the dock and will have to face prison if he's found guilty. So those arrests will happen. When they're going to happen, we don't know. But what we do know is that the process of the law enforcement is now taking place. It's time consuming. Fortunately, a lot of the evidence has been provided to the police. The cases have been laid, and they've just got to go through the motions now. There are still some barriers there. We see Sean Abrams trying to talk his way out of him blocking a lot of these cases, and they have, because that Estina matter was brought to attention of the authorities in 2014, and they did nothing. Now,
very briefly, Wayne, what do you think will be the major breakthrough still to happen that, from OUTA's perspective, will tell you or give you the comfort and confidence that indeed now action is being taken against state capture?
It will be when the Hawks and the NPA work a lot closer together, stop blaming each other, and start working on the big cases, the contracts, the coal contracts to get Eskom. on the train contracts at Transnet and Prasa. Do you know that we've got a case against the Hawks, as Prasa did with Popo Molefe, to tell the Hawks to do their damn job because they are stalling on going after the people implicated in the train contracts there. Now, if a new element of the Hawks come in and remove us having to go to court just to do their job, we'll start seeing, and we believe that's going to start happening now. So I think we mustn't be hasty. This is a journey, but the momentum is swinging fast. Who would have said 3-4 months ago assets forfeiture unit would have been in there, the arrests that are taking place in the Free State, the whole board of Eskom was swept clean, and the things that are transpiring now. So but it's not going to happen overnight. We're confident that there are going to be a lot of wealthy people, ministers, DGs, ex-DGs, ex-ministers, that will be facing the music and by Christmas time might not be enjoying Christmas with their families.
Wayne Duvenage, thank you very much.
Thank you.
He's the chairman of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, and just giving us an update and their take on the recent developments around state capture and the Gupta citizenship.